Good morning, C4 family. It's great to be with you this morning. Let's take a minute and worship God this morning. Let's just pour out all of our praise and all of our thanks to Him.
In the morning you sing over me, and I receive your mercy. Your faithfulness is clear to see. It's constant every day. In the morning you sing over me, and I receive your mercy. Thank you. Your faithfulness is clear to see. It's like the sunrise. It's constant every day. Every breath I breathe, an invitation to believe you are creating something good. Though this season doesn't tell my story, I know you move mountains for me. You're just that good. So I'll give thanks to God when I don't have enough, 'cause He's more than enough, and He knows what I need. So I'll give thanks to God when I don't have enough, 'cause He's more than enough, and He knows what I need. In the silence I choose to believe you're working in my way. No, the future isn't clear to me. No, I'll trust you anyway. Every breath I breathe, an invitation to believe you are creating something good. Though this season doesn't tell my story, I know you move mountains for me. You're just that good. So thanks to God when I don't have enough, 'cause He's more than enough, and He knows what I need. So thanks to God when I don't have enough, have enough, 'cause he's more than enough, and he knows what I need. Oh, you know what I need. You meet me on the mountaintop. You see me in the valley low. There is no home without you here. I find you in the crowded thoughts. You quiet all the question marks. There is no space your love won't fill. I'll trade all my fear for peace of mind. All my heaviness for burdens light. And this will be my song, that you are always good. I'll sing it all day long, that you are always good. And when the day is through, I am left with you, are always, you are always good. I set my eyes on perfect faith. You'll finish what you started me. My heart will be an offering, and I'll trade all my fear for peace of mind. All my heaviness for burdens light. And this will be my song, that you
Good morning, C4 family, and happy Sunday. We're so excited that you decided to join us on our live stream today. I know Pastor Ian has a great message for us all this morning, so wherever you are, stick around and check it out. Due to COVID-19, all of our in-person church activities will be canceled through the month of April. Some of our small groups might find creative ways to continue meeting, so please stay in touch with your small group leaders. If this is your first time with us, welcome. We would have loved to meet you in person, but in the meantime, you can go to our website at www.c4chat.com/connect and fill out our online Connect card so we can learn a bit more about you. Also, if you'd like an opportunity to support us financially, there are two ways you can do so. One, you can give online on our website at www.c4chat.com/give. Two, you can text an amount to 84321 where you can set up a one-time gift or a recurring gift. Along with supporting local and world missions, we're working hard to keep in contact, to create content, and to maintain community during this time. So, thank you for your continued support. Thank you so much for joining us on our live stream. Stay safe, stay in touch, and hey, let's have a great week.
Good morning, C4 Church. Welcome to Church Online. I'm so glad that you are here with us today. And I have heard that this quarantine is slowly but surely coming to an end. And I am so excited about that. I can't wait to see your beautiful faces, for us to get together, because it's great that we have resources like this, but nothing is as awesome as us coming together and worshiping our God in the same room, feeling the energy of that, having the emotions of that. I know you miss it. I miss it. I can't wait to be in a charged environment like this again, and I believe it's coming in the next few weeks. So stay hooked into social media, Slack channel, Facebook, Instagram, and we will be able to roll this out as soon as we know something. We will let you know, and we will get this thing going. But in the meantime, we're going to jump back into our series called Planted. And you have been planted at home now for, it's been 6 months, a year, I don't know. It's been a long time. It's been too long. And I've tried to get away from this sermon series, but we're all still planted. So if we're planted, if we're stuck, if you will, that's kind of the bad side of planted. I believe that God has a purpose in your planting for this season. So we're going to stick into this series for a couple more weeks until we get out of all this madness. And our key verse, our anchor verse, if you want to go with me to Psalms chapter 1, and it is, "They are like trees planted along the riverbank." That's our position. We are next to God's living water. This is where He wants us, in His garden, by His streams of resource. And it says that we will bear fruit in each season. I love that the word says. It doesn't say, certain fruits bear their fruit one time a year or during one season. It says that we're going to be so healthy that we're going to bear fruit in every season. That even when bad things come, even when seasons change, God will give us an ability to bear fruit while we're planted in the scenario. Maybe right now you need to bear fruit right where you're at. Maybe God's doing something inside of you where He's going to give you some creativity and some ability and some time to put your resources into a place where you can bear fruit, even though it's not a normal scenario or circumstance. It goes on to say this: their leaves never wither. That's God's protection. Yeah, the economy can take a downturn. Your job can change. The world around us and the relationships may be going up and down. But God's provision is this, that your leaves will never wither, and they prosper in all that they do. Now, I don't know about you, or I do know about you, because if you're like me, you want to be like a tree planted by God's water, because we want to prosper in all the things that we do. We want to have success in our vision. We want to be a man or a woman of God that He's called us to be and that He's given us the potential to be. And so we have been digging in, pun intended, to try to find the depths of God's resources during our time of planted with our roots. So this is all about the root system. There's a thing in the anatomy of plants called a meristem cell. Meristem cells do this. They are in the trunk of the tree or in the base of the plant, and they get to make the decision when they assess the situation and the circumstances, and they take the resources from the world around them, and they decide whether those resources go up to the shoot or go down to the root, okay? So they get to decide up or down wherever the body needs it the most. Now, I believe that we have some stem cells in our spiritual world that can process the world around us and the scenarios and the circumstances and the position of where we're at and what's going on and the facts and the details. And it's not the facts and the details and the scenario that define us. It is the way that we handle those things. It's the way that we process those things. Our spiritual stem cells will help us to know where do we need these resources during this season, during this quarantine, during this relationship, during this thing in our life. And so the anatomy of the plant can help us understand that we gather the details of the environment and we make good decisions of where we need to process these resources. So here's the question. What do you do when you don't know what to do? What do you do when the circumstances, details, facts of this world begin to apply pressure and stress and makes it to where you want to make erratic decisions, you want to do odd things that are outside of your character, or outside of your morals, or outside of your biblical life? What do you do when you have these problems going on? We got to have a way to filter and process so that we can make appropriate decisions and that we can know what to do when the heat gets turned up, when the economy shuts down, when our job scenarios change. And see, a lot of us, I think this has been a good time for us because we've realized that our provision may not just come from one source, that our purpose may not be what we thought it was, that the presence of God may exist in a place like your bedroom, your living room, or your bathroom, right? Because some of us are worshiping in our bathroom. It's kind of an ongoing joke going with this live scenario. But that the presence of God is not restricted to the four walls of a church building. That when we gather over the internet like this, that we are gathering in a space where the Holy Spirit knows no limitations, that we are together in spirit even though we are apart in body. And so we're learning new things. How do we process all this? We need our spiritual stem cells to help us. And it reminds me of the Israelites when in Isaiah chapter 37, where they were ripped apart by the details and the facts of the world. But this is what God said: the surviving remnant of the house of Judah will again take root downward and bear fruit upwards. This sounds like that stem cell, that meristem cell process, is that God will always secure a remnant of His people. People who still say, no matter what happens, I will serve God. This day, me and my family, we're going to serve the Lord. No matter what happens, we're going to be in God's garden. This is what He does. He secures a remnant, and it says that this remnant will take root and bear fruit. You got to have the root first. That's the whole point in the process. And then you can bear fruit. It also reminds me of Hebrews chapter 12. And I think this is very relevant to us today. It says, look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. We are responsible for one another. It's not my job as a pastor to make sure that everybody in our church is taken care of. It is our job. This is our family. We have to look after one another, love, serve, point one another to Jesus and to His resources. We are a forest. We are a village. We are in this together, and we have to look after one another. It goes on to say this: watch out now that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you and corrupt many. You know what would hurt a body, what would hurt a forest, what would hurt a church, is when bitterness begins to grow up in the root system. Because our roots are going to be healthy or they're going to be bitter. Some of us right now, we may even be struggling because the world has thrown some stuff at us we weren't expecting. We might be dealing with the big why questions. We might be blaming God. We might be having some scenarios in our relationships because we're in a whole new world right now where we're processing this with bitterness. We're becoming bitter when I believe that God's destiny for us is to become better. And so how do we change that out? How do we become better and not bitter? By allowing these spiritual stem cells to help direct our resources in the right way. We will take the information, the facts, the details. Hey, somebody that's listening has lost their job. Somebody has had a financial hardship, has had trials, tribulation, struggles. Some of you right now, while you're watching this, you're dealing with a diagnosis that you don't want, that you don't need, that you didn't ask for, a scenario you were in, a situation you did not ask for. You didn't sign up for this. And right now, in the midst of all that, you have a choice to process that biblically by leaning on the Father, who is a good Father, and leaning on the church, who should be our support system to help us find the grace of God when we're hurt. Or we can choose to become bitter, mad at God, putting distance between myself and God, putting distance between myself and my church. Or we could do it the biblical way, and that is cast your cares on God. Fall into His lap. Grab those people that we call our church family, our local church family. Put our arms around one another. Ask each other tough questions. Support one another. When we see somebody hurting, let our spiritual stem cells within this local body distribute the resources where they need to go. If someone's sick, if someone among us is sick, then that means we all feel that burden. We all begin to pray. If someone is lacking financially, we all come together. And I want to praise the church family because you guys have helped to make it possible for us to give to some big financial needs during this season that could never have been taken care of without you giving and serving and loving people enough to make a sacrifice in your own finances. That's huge. That is awesome. And I just want to thank you for being a part of the root systems of our church so that we can produce healthy fruit and we can serve a multitude of people because of your engagement in our family. And so something else I found out about the meristem cells is that these meristem cells, they are in charge of wound healing. Now, we're talking about this bitterness. When bitterness grows up, man, it creates a thing called a wound. And if we don't address the wound pointedly and with purpose, that wound will fester and turn into a mess. Hebrews says that it will affect many. Did you know your bitterness doesn't just affect you? It really kills us from the inside out. It's like a pestilence or some sort of poison gets, actually the word says a poisonous root of bitterness. It gets up inside our root system and it takes us out from the inside out. But it doesn't just affect you in your spiritual life. It affects your health. It affects you holistically. And it affects everyone around you. Man, when bitter people come in, it's kind of like that old thing my grandmother used to say is one bad orange will spoil the bunch, right? One bad fruit messes up. Bitterness works like that. And so we've got to take our bitterness to the Lord. He wants us to be better, feel better, live better, be in relationship with Him in such a better situation than we used to be, instead of letting the scenarios and the details of this world make us bitter. And so we have to take these things to the Lord. And I think that what we're talking about is that root system. That's the unseen part of our spiritual development. And when things are unseen, it's hard for us to really grasp conceptually what is going on. But this is how Jesus continually reminds us that our heart is directly connected with the activity, with our mouth. It says whatever is in a man's heart, it comes up, springs up out of his mouth. It affects our actions. So our heart is what always matters. It's always the point. It's always what Jesus is after. He's always after our heart. But our heart creates things that are seen. You can't see my heart. You can't, the actual invisible thing that we're talking about, that we all know what this thing, but you can see what my heart produces inside of me. One of the biggest, intangible things that you will see is my attitude. This is like the outside perspective of what is happening inside. My attitude, I'll call that a fruit of what my heart is doing. The fruit of the root of my heart. And my attitude, it really tells you a lot about who I am. It tells you a lot about what I'm capable of. It tells you a lot about what I believe God can do with me, or that I believe God will do with me. So if my attitude's all off and messed up, it shows that there's a heart issue. If your attitude is continually creating scenarios that put us in a bad place in our relationships, then you know that there's a heart issue happening. What will you do with the life and the details and the circumstances that you are given? That's that stem cell decision. I feel like we have a spiritual decision. Our attitude is directly tied to what will we do with the things that the life gives us, the things that this life gives us, the thing that the cards that we are dealt. How will we play? Will we whine about it? Will we allow depression to be where we always lean towards? Will we allow the negativity to come up and spring up out of our mouth? Will it affect our actions and our reactions to a point to where, as the word says, when we become bitter, it affects a multitude of people around us? But I think we can be better as a church, better as a husband, better as a student, instead of getting bitter because of the scenario that we find ourselves in. Did you know we are right here next to the state of Georgia, and I love a Georgia peach. Did you know that to get the perfect peach, farmers will tell you that you have to have 1,000 hours of extremely cold weather during the process of that peach growing, that fruit growing? That if you have favorable weather all the way through the season of peaches growing on the tree, you know what you're going to end up having? A peach that's not that great. And I think some of us, we think that we need the perfect weather, the perfect environment, the perfect scenario where it feels great to us. 72 degrees all the time. This is great, like sunshine on my face, baby. I got to have it with no stress, like the wind blowing through my hair. Like it's got to be that. And God says, that's not how I do things. Some of you, if you want to become the perfect picture of what God has planned for you, you may have to endure some things in this world that will test you and challenge you and confront your character when you need that. And so this idea of the perfect peach, I think it can go along with our relationship with God. Jesus himself, with his own lips, he said, you will have trials and tribulations. You will experience hardship, pain, mourning. Don't expect that that's not going to happen. Don't expect that there pandemics won't happen, that economic downturns won't happen, that relationships won't fall apart. It's going to happen, and that's not what determines who we are. Our reaction to that is what determines who we are. How we respond to that, our attitude in the midst of all the details. And this is where Christ wants us to be better and not bitter. And that's really a choice that we have. I've seen people, and you've seen people, that have gotten the stage 4 cancer diagnosis. And it always grips me when I see the people that get the diagnosis of no hope or no future, and they deal with it with a smile on their face. They deal with it with peace and joy inside them. They deal with it in a way that I don't understand right now, coming from a perspective of someone who does not have cancer. I've seen people who said, a doctor said, you'll never walk again. And they say, guess what? I'm going to use this to glorify my God. And it blows my mind when I see how beautiful these people take the bad cards they were dealt and they use it to glorify God. But then when you actually process it through Scripture and through our spiritual stem cells, man, what a great opportunity that you have if you have the diagnosis, to honor God with your attitude and to show the world that serving God is not about the perfect 72-degree weather all the time, but I will serve God when I'm up, I'll serve God when I'm down, I'll serve God when I'm healthy, I'll serve God when I'm sick, because He will never leave me and never forsake me. Even though I may be going through a trial, it doesn't mean that it's over. I may be under something, but it's not over. And so I've seen the same people, or I've seen different people with the same scenario, and they've interpreted it with their attitude a little bit differently. I've seen some of the most bitter people in the world, and you ask them, why are you so bitter? And they'll say, because I got this diagnosis, or the marriage that I put all of the stock in, it all fell apart, or my financial life is in ruin. And you know what? I'm going to take the advice of Job's friends. I'm going to curse God, and I want to die. And instead of allowing the scenarios of the world to be processed through a biblical lens, through a lens of hope and future, and to know that we have a good Father, instead we take the other route, which is very natural. I'm not condemning anybody right now. I understand. We've all been there, where we are all challenged to get mad at God, to get mad at the church, to get mad even at the scriptures that promise me something that I haven't seen fulfilled in my life yet. But what I'm trying to encourage you is that our attitude is directly tied to our heart. If we've seen our attitude flying off the rails because things in life aren't like they ought to be, it might mean that we have a heart issue and we need to run to the Father. I love what the word promises is, if we will draw near to God, He will draw near to us. If you're hurting today, draw near to God. If you're dealing with something today, draw near to God. There's a promise that when you come near to Him, He will always come near to you. He is close to the brokenhearted. He is right there in your living room or in your car right now, wherever you're watching today. And you can reach out and you can have that relationship and that touch of God in your life today. I just want to encourage you that it's not over. Even though you're undervalued maybe, you're under pressure, you might be under some sort of sickness right now, but it's not over, because God has a hope and a future. I can't wait to see what He's going to do in your life.
The Lord bless you and keep you, make His face shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. The Lord bless you and keep you, make His face shine upon you, be gracious. 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you for 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His presence go before you, and behind you, and beside you, all around you, and within you. He is with you, He is with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming, and your going, and your weeping, and rejoicing. He is for you, 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 He is for you. May His favor be upon you, and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His presence go before you, and behind you, and beside you, all around you, and within you. He is with you, He is with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming, and your going, in your weeping, and rejoicing. He is for you, 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 He is for Sing we know you're for us, never against us. We sing amen, we sing
Amen. So glad you are with us today. If you need prayer, it's prayer@c4chat.com. We'd love to pray with you. And God bless you. We will see you soon.